Good morning, everybody. Sorry for that being very loud. I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Zoning and Planning Committee for Thursday, November 8th. My name is Jeremy Schrader, and I'm the chair of this committee. With me at the dais are Councilmember Ellison, Councilmember Reich, and Councilmember Gordon. Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. We're also joined by Councilmember Johnson. Thanks for coming to the committee today. We have 7 items on today's agenda, and we'll begin with the consent agenda, which is items 3 through 7. Number 3 is the referring to staff the subject matter of an ordinance related to the lot combinations in lower density zoning districts. We referred several other chapters of staff at our last meeting, but missed this one due to a clerical error. Number 4 is the approval of the utility easement at 277 12th Avenue North. Number 5 is the approval of a rezoning and vacation application submitted by Plymouth Christian Youth Center to allow for a theater addition. Item number 6 is the approval of a rezoning at 2801 and 2801 and a half California Street Northeast. And item 7 is the approval of a rezoning and vacation applications submitted by Schaefer Richardson to allow for a new residential structure and art studio in a planned unit development. Are there any questions or comments from committee members on any of these items, or would anyone like to pull anything off? With that, not seeing anything, I will move items 3 through 7 for approval. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and that motion carries. We'll now move on to number 1, which is the consideration of a conditional use permit appealing the project at 501 and 511 Avenue South, and we'll begin with the staff presentation.
Good morning, council members. This is an appeal submitted by Basant Carbanda regarding the decision of the Planning Commission denying a conditional use permit for an accessory surface parking lot in the B4N zoning district in the downtown parking overlay district for the properties at 501 and 511 11th Avenue South. The City Planning Commission had also denied a variance to increase the number of parking spaces in the proposed parking lot from 20 to 30, but that denial was not appealed. So the only item before you today is the action on the conditional use permit. When the Planning Commission saw the project, this is the site plan that was provided. So there is an existing 146 space surface parking lot on the site. This line follows the edge of the pavement, if you will, of the existing parking lot. This portion of the existing site is currently grass. So this was the expanded parking lot that was proposed at the Planning Commission meeting, and this is where those additional 30 parking spaces were provided. This is a commercial parking lot, meaning that the applicant has a Class A license, so they can lease to whomever they want. This would be an accessory parking lot because you cannot expand commercial parking lots downtown. That is and it's nothing, you cannot expand commercial parking lots, excuse me. So this would be an accessory lot to the use of the building for only the tenants in the building. We had recommended denial of both the conditional use permit and the variance, as there are already 146 parking spaces in the surface parking lot, and there is also a 550 space commercial parking garage on the property. Adding more surface parking to the site goes against the intent to reduce the amount of surface parking in the downtown overlay district. The land where the applicant would like to expand the parking lot is currently landscaping and serves, it's grass, I should say. It's not trees and shrubs and perennials or whatnot, but it is landscaped and serves as a buffer between the parking lot and then the public street and sidewalk, which is also includes Samotar Crossing, which comes across from Cedar Riverside and was recently opened this year. And then the comprehensive plan and the downtown East North Loop neighborhood master plan do not support adding additional surface parking. So those 2 items, or the conditional use permit to add a accessory parking lot was denied. Since the Planning Commission meeting, the applicant has revised the site plan to show only a 20 space surface parking lot. And this is shown as just landscape rock area. If you were to approve the appeal and then subsequently approve the conditional use permit to allow that 20 space surface parking lot, we have added, and they are listed in the request for council action, 5 conditions of approval that we would request that you approved, which gives guidance to staff for landscaping and fencing on the site. So I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I think it'd be also helpful just to talk a little bit about how this works in the process, and if, since their plan was denied, and how granting this appeal would help the development move forward, or kind of how that kind of fits in, if that makes sense.
Well, with the denial from the Planning Commission, the parking lot could not be expanded. The site would have to stay as it is. If you approve the conditional use permit, or if you approve the appeal today, you approve the conditional use permit to add that surface parking lot, that accessory surface parking lot on the site. So the site would then be reconfigured, and then this additional parking would be added.
Okay, thank you. That's Councilmember Gordon.
So the project was approved, only without the parking? Or was the whole project stopped?
The whole project is just the additional parking spaces,
Oh, okay,
so it was
okay,
denied.
Okay, I see. And the conditions stipulate that they can't use rock mulch?
Correct.
They would have to actually plant plants, trees?
We wouldn't
Right
want
now?
this entire area to be just a sea of rock. So we have the conditions state or speak to not using rock mulch in large contiguous areas, but then also landscaping this with trees, shrubs, perennials, whatnot, making it a gateway, if you will, from into the city.
I saw that condition and I appreciated it a lot, so much so I wanted to mention it at committee. So that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about perhaps granting the appeal, but I'd love to hear from my colleagues.
Okay.
Great, thank you. At this point, I'll open the hearing. I'll first give the applicant the opportunity to speak to committee. Is the applicant here and like to speak? If you could say your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Varun Karbhanda. Good morning, council members. And I represent the address of 511 11th Avenue South. I believe the address of this exact property is 501. So before I begin, I want to show you just how small the area is. And we have been working with Hillary, obviously, and with the council and with the neighborhood groups. This is the, I don't know if you can see it well, but thank you. Thanks, Hillary. So that's the area that we're looking to surface lots, just the area in the green. So the surface lot already goes all the way, this is north. When we put this new plan out, if you overlay the two, you can kind of see that this is the line, this is the area we're really talking about. So to make this look nice, when we worked with the neighborhood and with Hillary and everybody, we moved this line over this way. So we made it bigger. And then we dropped a curb down. We did all these things to make the whole area more functional and looking better. So we're actually taking part of the existing lot with the Class A license and moving it over, dropping a curb, and then calling this area tenant parking only. So we're actually taking our own area and giving it to this side to make it more squared off, if that makes sense. You can see in the original drawing here how much smaller that would be. So we're reshaping both the areas. The other thing I wanted to explain was that we definitely want to put a fence up, and we want to match both the neighborhood. We want to highlight the Serpentine Crossing, which we were advocates for. So we want to make the area look more appealing. I actually have the fencing design here. I believe we have, the tree design is here, and then there would also be a fence up too, as Hillary mentioned. I believe you have most information, and I can answer questions as I talk if you have any questions right now.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions.
So the tree design looks pretty good. The only limitation would be, and we kind of mentioned this before, might be the depth of the roots. So that might inhibit some of the larger trees, and we've kind of taken into account. But you can see that the larger ones are more towards the south side, here and here, because there's less underground utilities in that area. One is CenturyLink and such. That curve cut comes right over here. A denial would mean that we wouldn't be able to utilize the land, which we purchased from the city, and it would mean it would stay this way until about 2020, because that's the next time we could take the opportunity to clean this up. Advantages if we get the appeal, if it's approved, is that we can clean this up before the NCAA that's coming up. We were hoping to get this done even before the Super Bowl, but we lost that one. We were on that case, we were too slow. So we'd like to clean this up for the NCAA, which is coming up in April. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any other questions, I would now open the rest of the hearing to the public. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes, which will be tracked by the timer by the clerk. Would any members of the public like to speak on this project? Come on up. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. Tom Schmid, 700 South 2nd Street. I am a member of the Land Use Committee of the Downtown Association. And we have written a letter presenting our argument on this case. I would just like to supplement that by saying that we support this appeal despite our general opposition to surface parking, and despite the fact that no residents live in this immediate area. Our concern is with the public space surrounding this area, most particularly the Samotar Crossing. We think this is a fundamentally important space for the city. On this, I'm watching the clock here. On this end of the project, we're particularly concerned with the sort of visual image that it presents to people using that. We believe this landscaping does present a greening opportunity for the city to clean this up a bit. We encourage you to grant the appeal, and also to encourage the developer in any way you can to really deliver a vibrant landscape plan at this end of the crossing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Any other members of the public here to speak? Anyone else interested in speaking? Anyone else? Seeing no one, the hearing is now closed. I'd like to see if there are any questions or comments from my committee members. Are you going to do it? Oh, there you go. Councilmember Gordon.
Yeah, I'll move to grant the appeal with the conditions.
Councilmember Gordon's motion is before us. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move on to number 2, which is the consideration of a variance appeal regarding the project at 4357 Minnehaha Avenue. We'll begin with the staff presentation.
Good morning, Chair Schrader and council members. Before you today is an appeal of the action of the Zoning Board of Adjustment on 2 variance applications to allow the lawful expansion of an existing outdoor dining area at 4357 Minnehaha. As you can see here, the subject property is located in the C1 district. It's a reverse corner lot that's surrounded on all sides by residential uses. The area to the front of the building is occupied by a paved patio that has been there since sometime prior to 1938. The southern portion of this patio is currently in use legally as outdoor dining. And the applicant is looking at lawfully expanding the outdoor dining to cover the entire patio space. Because the property directly borders residential property to the north and the east, it is subject to several reflective setbacks, including a reflective front yard setback located at the northwest corner of the property. That setback is 20 feet in depth and extends for the northern 25 feet of the property there. And then in addition to that, there's also a 20-foot separation requirement between outdoor dining and adjacent residential uses or residential property lines. So the applicant has sought variances to both of those provisions to allow the expansion of the outdoor dining into that area so that it would extend the full width of the property adjacent to Minnehaha. This application went to public hearing at the October 11th meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. In general, staff found that the applications met the required findings due to the property's unusual location as a reverse corner lot entirely surrounded by residentially zoned property. The fact that that patio space has been paved for at least 80 years, the separation between the patio space and the adjacent residential use, which is just under 22 feet, and the mixed-use residential and small-scale commercial character of this stretch of Minnehaha. The board, however, denied the applications based on the findings that are contained in their actions here, namely that outdoor dining is still possible on the property without variances, that the proposal does not meet the intent of the 20-foot separation requirement, and that the expansion could have some off-site impacts on the adjacent residential property. So the applicant has appealed that decision based primarily on their response to some concerns raised by the neighbors and their plan to mitigate those impacts, and they'll explain that. But I'm happy to address any questions you have.
Thank you. Don't see any questions. I'll know at this point to kind of open the hearing and first give the applicant a chance to speak. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry, one others. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a question for staff. Is this a new expansion of the patio, or was this something that was in use as a patio? And if it was in use prior as a patio to an enforcement action, was it since the current tenant has been there? And why was the enforcement action taken? Was it based off of resident complaints, or was it based off of what?
Chair Schrader, Councilmember Johnson, this patio area has been paved since sometime prior to 1938. Until the current tenant occupied the building, I'm not sure that it was ever in use for lawfully established outdoor dining. There had previously been tables set up there, but there was not a license for outdoor dining. The applicant has held a business license for outdoor dining on the southern part of the patio for several years. They were using the northern part of the patio for at least a portion of that time. Business licensing received a complaint from a different business owner regarding the use of the patio, and so now the applicant is seeking to lawfully establish it.
And was it a complaint from another business owner, or did another business owner say, hey, we'd like a patio similar to what they're doing?
Yes, Councilmember Johnson, it was they were seeking a very similar situation, and they wanted everyone to go through the same process.
So it was operating as a patio without complaints?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Not seeing any other questions, we'll open the hearing now, and I'll give the applicant the first opportunity to speak.
Hi, Sam Nestingen, Parkway Pizza, 4357 Minnehaha. I guess I didn't know what to expect today, so I feel like I maybe should have brought some paper. I'm feeling very ill prepared. But what we're looking to do is use the full, it's about 50 feet, and right now we're using the southern 30 feet. We're looking to use the full 50. We've been doing that for about 5 years now. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. That was an honest oops. I mean, it's sitting there. It looks like it should be used. We used it. We got told by Julie Casey we were not supposed to be using it. We ceased using it. We put up some caution tape. Very attractive. But we gave the setback, and then I've been going through this process, and I feel in part we got rejected by the board because I didn't show up to that meeting. I didn't know. I thought this was more like a permit application where you give all the paperwork to the city and then the city gives you a permit. I didn't realize that it wasn't like just a formality, I guess, and I was ill prepared, and that's 100% my fault. So anyway, part of why I'm appealing their decision is I didn't realize that neighbors had problems with us. And the neighbors are here, and I have made great efforts to assuage their concerns. And I've demonstrated to them, I mean, I'm willing to do whatever they want. And I would have been willing to do that whether or not we had this patio dispute, because I sincerely want to be a good neighbor. So we've improved the fence between our yards already. I've dimmed the lighting out in front. If you guys have read their letters, those are two big problems that they had. I put those lights up this spring. I could just as easily have taken them down. I wasn't aware that there was an issue with those lights. And as soon as I was made aware of an issue, I resolved it like within a week. You know, it's not like I'm dragging my feet here. And to any of their other issues, you know, I know there's a little bit of concern with, they say, well, it's permanent. So what happens, Sam, when your business leaves in 20 years and the next business comes, and then they can create, you know, noise and havoc and whatever right in our yard, you know, right next to our yard. I don't know if you guys can do this, but I'm willing to, okay, I take the variance with me. So when I sell the property, I don't, you know, get the monetary benefit of having a variance that allows for full use of that patio. I'm not, you know, this isn't for, I'm not a property developer, I don't care. The other thing that we could do would be something like a 10-foot. Maybe you give us 10 feet. If the neighbors are really opposed, maybe we do it for 5 years and see how it's going. So I'm willing to compromise. I'm willing to make this work, and I'm willing to bend over backwards to do that. So, any questions?
All right, not seeing any questions. Thanks so much for coming down. I'll now open the hearing to the public. Again, please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Would any members of the public like to speak? Come on up.
Thank you. My name is Jill Townley. I live at 4345 Minnehaha Avenue, which is 2 doors down from Parkway Pizza. The biggest concern that we have with the patio is the noise. It's generated in the spring, the summer, the fall, and the hours go from 11 a.m. till 10 p.m. And it's just a lot to ask 50 people 2 doors down to keep it down. I mean, how would you guys feel if your neighbors had a party every single night, spring, summer, and fall, until 10 p.m.? It would just be too much. I would also like to address the 3-part test for granting a variance. My husband and I and my neighbor all maintain that the first 2 parts of the 3-factor test have not been met. The first part regarding uniqueness, the applicant contributes to their own problem. They have pool tables and foosball tables inside. They can easily add additional seating. This is also not similar to the Foursquare restaurant that was mentioned earlier, in which the restaurant was given the variance because without, they would have not been able to have any outdoor dining. This is not the same situation. Parkway still has seating capabilities for 40 people on their patio. And this is in addition to the pending sidewalk cafe permit, where they're asking for an additional 4 two-top tables. Regarding the second part, reasonableness, to consider their request, one would step through a series of progressive questions. First, how would they like to use their property? Well, he wants to use it as patio space. Second question, is he currently able to do so? Yes. Parkway is currently able to seat approximately 40 people under the rules of the ordinance. Question 3, is it reasonable? No. We believe the applicant still has reasonable use of their property.
Thank you.
Because these 2 factors are not met, the 3-factor test has not been met.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is anyone else interested in speaking? Come on up.
Sorry, Sam. Hi, my name is Barb Olson, and I live directly north of the patio, or the pizza place. And I do appreciate all the things that Sam has done for us the last few weeks. We did have some issues with the building, and he was made aware of them, and he's tried to help that. The patio in the front, that's a different story. And the issues that I had, and you mentioned that asked the question earlier, you know, was there any complaints earlier? Well, I'm not the type of person that complains about things. So I had issues with it, but I never went to him because I just dealt with it because I didn't think I had any legal response to, you know, that they would do anything about it. The problem is the patio, and it wasn't used for a patio up until Sam used it. It was always just a paved surface. I've lived in the house since 1957. It's never been used for an outdoor patio until Sam started using it for that purpose. So up until then, it was just a sidewalk. And the main thing that we have, it's the noise. My driveway is right where the patio is. So their tables and chairs are right within a foot of my property. And that's where I have the issue, is with that. And then it's the people coming back and forth. My driveway is right there. It's hard to go in and out when you've got, large amounts of people that are going across your sidewalk all the time. So those were my main concerns. So do you have any questions for me, or?
Doesn't look like it, but thank you so much for coming down.
Okay, thank you.
Is anyone else interested in speaking? Anybody else? All right, seeing no one, the hearing is now closed. I'll see if we have any questions from council members. Any comments? Councilmember Reich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And obviously, we're joined by Councilmember Johnson, who's not on the committee, but in consultation with him, and of course, he can add the background that he shared with me in terms of the local context as he understands it. I believe he also had communications with some of the conversation that happened at the Board of Adjustments to give some context to that as well. And also, in consideration of issues and concerns that have been raised, had formulated some conditions if the committee were so to approve the appeal, that it would be tied to some conditions. I have those printed out here, and I will submit them to the clerk if that were to prevail. I will share them with the committee for our consideration. These 4 conditions, again, construed in consultation with the council member of the area. Screening of 3 feet in height, at least 95% opacity to be maintained between the outdoor dining area adjacent to the residential use. Screening of 6 feet in height, at least 95% opacity, shall be maintained along the north property line in the rear of the building. Lighting shall be arranged so as not to cause illumination or glare to excess of 1/2 of a foot candle, measured by the property line of the residential use north of the lighting fixtures to excess of 2,000 lumens, shall be shielded from the property line of the residential use to the north as required by a certain code that's listed in the requirement here. Item 4 is the lighting specific to the outdoor dining area shall not run outside the regular operating hours of the business. Security and pedestrian lighting is unassociated with the outdoor dining and in compliance with the relevant ordinance. I'll also note that there are several different licensing regulations that control noise and other sort of activities that would be in full force and effect. And I believe the good neighbor approach of the business would be compliant with that without much prompting, is my understanding. So with that, I will move these conditions and move granting of the appeal subject to the committee's concurrence.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the residents as well for their thoughtful letters that they submitted. That was very helpful with the Zoning Board of Adjustment looking at those. And in fact, these conditions are a direct result of recommendations that residents made in their letters. And I want to leave you with the message as well that there are other ways we can address other issues related to quality of life living next to a business. And so this conversation does not end here today with any committee action, whatever the committee acts on, but I would encourage you to keep working with the business owner, working in good faith when you have issues and try to work through those together, but also please keep my office in the loop because there's other mechanisms as well that the city has, and we try to strike that balance for residents living next to businesses. And it's hard. There's inevitably things that come with living next to businesses as well, but there are ways that the city can better strike that balance and help residents out too. And we've done it for a lot of businesses and a lot of residents in the ward where they've had impacts to the quality of their lives and where it's crossed that line from reasonableness of living next to a business into being unreasonable. The city has helped restore the balance there and bring some peace for residents as well living next to the businesses. So thank you for the very thoughtful and really helpful letters. I think it really puts in perspective too for those of us that don't live right next door to a business the many different ways that it impacts the quality of life. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Reich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just, by way of background, the appellant does operate in my ward as well, and I can certainly vouch for the good neighbor approach very near my home, actually. So that's also background in terms of my sentiment towards this matter.
Great, not seeing any other questions. Councilmember Reich's motion is before us with the conditions. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The motion carries. Seeing no further business before this committee, we are adjourned.